Anyone who has ever lived as a live-in son-in-law treated like a dog knows the drill. You have to prepare every meal like a Michelin star chef, carry your mother-in-law's foot bath to the sofa on your hands and knees, and keep a smile on your face even when they're calling you a spineless loser. Beneath all that humiliation, I held the power of a reality-altering system. I quietly granted her 3 miraculous wishes. I took her father's bankrupt, failing business and turned it into a public powerhouse. I pulled her mother back from the brink of death when she was in a coma, and I traded my own future to ensure her brain tumor was cured. Instead of being grateful, she took it all for granted and treated me like a pathetic gold digger. She saw me as nothing more than a placeholder who was only fit to wear knockoff watches. She even had the nerve to get pregnant by another man and dismiss my concerns by saying the child would carry my last name anyway. When the system announced it was reclaiming every wish, her empire crumbled in a single night. Her mother fell back into a terminal state, and her brain cancer returned with a vengeance. Only then did she come to me with tearful eyes, begging to start over. By then, I was simply waiting for my countdown to hit 0. This time, the person I was saving was finally myself. After I worked tirelessly to push my wife to the peak of her career and transformed her into a titan of industry, I did not receive the fairy tale wedding we had dreamed of. Instead, I received a single message. She was pregnant. Even worse, the child belonged to her first love. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this? A child is a child," Olivia said, waving her hand with total indifference. "The baby will take your last name and carry on the Miller family legacy regardless. That should be enough for you." Her betrayal no longer had the power to hurt me. I felt no anger and no resentment. I was a contracted agent for the system. The only reason I had stayed this long was because every wish I granted her and every piece of reality I altered for her sake would be revoked the moment I left. I had stayed entirely for her benefit. When the mission hit 30%, I used a wish to take her company, Anderson Solutions, through a successful IPO. Investment capital flooded in like a tidal wave. When we reached 70%, I made another wish for her dying mother. I ensured the old woman would live a long, healthy life. Once the mission was fully complete, I used my final wish to erase the brain tumor that was killing her. I snatched Olivia right out of the hands of death. She mistook my lack of resistance for me, finally accepting my place. Because of that, she promised to let me manage a small subsidiary one day. She even made a hollow promise that we could have a child of our own in the future. She had no idea that my contract was nearly up. I will be leaving very soon. It was late evening when Olivia Anderson, my wife in name only, finally returned home. She tossed her designer handbag onto the marble console table in the foyer. Then she called out, "Lucas, honey, come over and rub my shoulders. This pregnancy is wearing me out." In the past, I would have rushed to her side immediately. I used to live in fear of her displeasure and did everything in my power to keep her happy. This time, I did not move an inch. I did not say a single word. After all, that child was not mine. Ever since her college first love, Liam, moved back to the States a year ago, she had not let me touch a single hair on her head. It was only recently that I discovered she was already 3 months along. She admitted it quite openly. It was Liam's baby. She showed not a hint of remorse, and actually expected me to be understanding, accept the situation, and even welcome the child into our home. In the past, she had at least tried to be discreet when meeting Liam by pretending their encounters were strictly business. Now, she was bold enough to bring him right into our home and let him wander around under my very nose. I watched as Liam followed Olivia inside. He draped his arm around her waist with an air of complete possessiveness. I remained silent and did not move. My uncharacteristic silence caused Olivia's expression to stiffen immediately. Just as she was about to snap at me, Liam intervened. He began to rub her shoulders with a look of practiced tenderness. "He is probably just tired from work, Olivia. Let me take care of you." While he spoke those sweet words, he made sure to shoot me a smug, knowing grin. I looked away and ignored him. Liam simply shrugged, completely unfazed. Olivia was the one who actually grew angry, her face flushing a deep red. "Tired? What does he have to be tired about? All he does is flip through some files and sign a few papers. Her voice rose as she continued. I am the one working myself to death ever since the IPO. What exactly has he contributed? If he hadn't been lucky enough to marry me, he wouldn't have set foot in a mansion like this in his entire life. He lives this life of luxury because of me, yet he shows no gratitude. He is just petty and spiteful. As I listened to her tear me down and treat me like I was worthless, I finally looked up. My gaze was cold enough to draw blood. The fact that I hadn't walked out or done something far more extreme while she carried another man's child was an act of extreme mercy on my part. Furthermore, every single brick of the empire she now controlled was built upon the sacrifices and efforts I had made as an agent for the system. Once my mission with Olivia was concluded, the system had promised me 3 incredibly powerful wish fulfillments. If I had taken those rewards back to my own reality, I would have had infinite wealth. I could have spent the rest of my life in luxury, doing whatever I wanted. But when the progress reached 30% and I received my first wish, I saw her. The normally cold and powerful woman was sobbing like a lost child. Anderson Solutions is the only thing my father left me, she had sobbed, her entire body trembling. But I am failing. I cannot do this anymore. On that day, my resolve shattered completely. The system warned me repeatedly. If I left before the end, every wish I had activated for her would be revoked and rendered void. Even with that warning, I used that first wish on her. I made her company skyrocket and cleared every obstacle from her path. Now, she was the powerful woman everyone envied. Her career was thriving, and she was at the top of the world. Even though she knew exactly who I was and what I had sacrificed for her, she still viewed me as a stain on her perfect life. To her, I was an eyesore who only deserved to be loathed and trampled upon. All the love I had poured into her had ultimately become nothing more than a cruel joke. As they sat far too close to one another on the sofa, I stood up and moved to an armchair on the far side of the room. Liam whispered something into Olivia's ear that made her laugh. It was a light, melodic sound that used to be reserved for me alone. She was radiating joy, completely lost in whatever he was saying. Liam had barely been massaging her shoulders for a minute before Olivia grabbed his hand, her voice dripping with concern. Liam, you must be exhausted today as well. Let me give you a massage so you can relax. Liam leaned back against the sofa immediately. He looked smug as he accepted the CEO's undivided attention. It hadn't even been a minute, and she was already worrying about him. What about me? I had spent years cooking for her every single day. I prepared gourmet meals and constantly varied the menu just to make sure she always had an appetite. I even used to carry warm foot baths to her and her mother while they sat on the sofa. I was as attentive as any servant could be. Yet in all that time, I never heard a single thank you. I never even saw a smile. All I ever received was endless criticism. She always found something to complain about, and even suggested I should go to school to become a certified nurse so I could serve them better. I used to be naive enough to think she was just bad at expressing her feelings. As it turned out, she didn't even view me as a human being. In her mind, I didn't deserve any basic respect. I closed my book and stood up to head back to my room. Olivia shot me a mocking look. It is 6 o'clock. Aren't you going to make dinner? We are starving over here. I kept my voice neutral. I just ordered some food on an app. You two can eat whenever it arrives. That was the first time I had ever stood up to her in front of someone else. Her eyes flashed with immediate rage. Oh, so you think you're a big man now? It is humiliating enough that I have to support a grown man like you. But now you are too lazy to even do the chores. The tension in the room became unbearable. Liam, playing the peacemaker as usual, reached out to pat Olivia's arm. He is probably just feeling a little hurt, Olivia. Don't be too hard on him. He then looked at me with a fake sense of sincerity. To be honest, this is all my fault. A few misunderstandings led us here. Olivia is just too kind-hearted. When it came down to it, she just couldn't go through with the alternative. That is why she decided to keep the baby. Too kind-hearted? Early in our marriage, Olivia got pregnant by accident. Before I could even process the joy of becoming a father, she coldly informed me that she was too busy with work and had already terminated the pregnancy. I was devastated at the time, but I didn't say a word against her. I truly believe that she just prioritized her career above all else. Yet now, at the absolute height of her success, she was more than willing to slow down for Liam's child. The truth was quite simple. Olivia believed that I had run out of wishes to grant her. She thought I was no longer of any use to her. She was ready to toss me aside at any moment. Her decision had absolutely nothing to do with being kind. Perhaps my cold stare finally unnerved her, because a flicker of unease crossed her face. For once, her tone softened slightly. If you treat this child well, we will have that massive wedding once the baby turns 1. You won't have to be my assistant anymore either. I will put you in charge of one of my subsidiary companies. I put my hands behind my back and walked away without saying a single word in response. She actually thought I would keep slaving away for her scraps. She had no idea that I was already preparing to return to my own world. I wanted nothing from this place. I was perfectly fine letting the system reclaim every bit of good fortune I had ever given her. I had 2 days left. I stopped going into the office and took the debit card containing my meager savings. I decided to spend every penny I had. I couldn't take anything with me when I left, so I might as well enjoy myself while I was still here. I was wandering aimlessly through a luxury mall when a breaking news report flashed onto the massive digital screens above. The report stated that Olivia's company, Anderson Solutions, was in serious trouble. One of their new construction projects had collapsed due to the use of substandard materials and safety violations. 6 workers had been killed instantly. I was stunned for a second, but then it made perfect sense. They had likely been cutting corners for years. The only reason they hadn't faced a disaster like this before was because the system had been protecting them. Now that the system was busy preparing for my departure, it was beginning to withdraw the protection and luck it had once provided. By the time I left this world tomorrow, Olivia would have to stand by and watch as her entire life's work crumbled into dust. The borrowed time she and her mother were living on would be revoked as well. My phone rang just as I was thinking that. It was Olivia. Something terrible has happened at the company. I need you to get back here right now. I strolled into a high-end boutique and kept my voice casual. I can't. I'm busy shopping right now. She was speechless. I had always been a workaholic who dropped everything the moment she called. She likely thought I was still just pouting, so she softened her voice in an attempt to manipulate me. Just come in for a quick meeting and help me handle this. After that, you could take a long break, okay? I was leaving this world tomorrow. The idea of taking a break was a joke. I hung up on her and continued my shopping spree through the most expensive stores in the mall. For the first time, I felt the thrill of reckless spending. Since I wouldn't be here tomorrow, it didn't matter how much I spent today. When I finally returned home with arms full of shopping bags, Olivia's mother was lounging in a silk robe like the pampered aristocrat she thought she was. She was already ranting to no one in particular. That son-in-law of mine is completely useless. People are dying at the company, and he is out here spending our money like it grows on trees. As I bent down to change my shoes, I noticed something. Liam was casually walking around the house wearing my slippers. Mrs. Anderson's attitude toward him was the complete opposite of how she treated me. She held Liam's hand affectionately and showered him with praise. Liam, you are such a wonderful man. Thank you for helping Olivia with the PR and for bringing her home safely. You are so thoughtful. Liam gave her a charming smile. We have the situation under control, Mrs. Anderson. This sort of thing is my specialty. Don't be too hard on Lucas. Given his humble beginnings, he is actually doing quite well for himself. Olivia's mother snorted. Doing well? If he hadn't lucked out and married my daughter, he wouldn't even know what success looks like. If it weren't for my daughter, he would probably be rotting in some studio apartment, eating instant noodles for every meal. The old woman had a very short memory. She seemed to have forgotten that when Olivia's father died and the creditors came knocking, she and her daughter were the ones shivering in a rundown rental. Back then, I was the one working multiple delivery jobs to keep them fed. Even those instant noodles were paid for with my sweat. Now that they were rich, she had forgotten the struggle and used our past poverty as a way to mock me. I didn't care enough to argue. I will be gone soon anyway. Olivia didn't join in on the mocking for once. She saw Liam to the door and then follow me into our bedroom. She pulled a crumpled but clearly expensive pattern tie from her bag as she walked toward me. I had this custom made by a world-famous designer. It is a limited edition, one of kind. I think it will look great on you. One of kind? I didn't believe her for a second. I had already seen Liam wearing this exact tie. He had flaunted it right in front of me as if he wanted to rub it in my face. I looked down and saw a faint lipstick stain near the knot. It also smelled like another man's cologne mixed with sweat. It was obvious that she had just taken it off Liam's neck and tossed it into her purse. Since I had been acting up lately, she decided to throw me this little scrap to keep me in line. In her mind, this was a grand gesture of affection. I didn't reach for it, but she stepped closer, intending to tie it around my neck herself. That was when Olivia finally noticed my new clothes and my fresh haircut. A look of disgust crossed her face as she frowned. The baby is still very small, so we need to be careful. We can't do anything too strenuous. You know what I mean. I was stunned for a moment before I realized what she was implying. Olivia had always hated being intimate with me. She had even set a strict rule after we got married that we would only be intimate 3 times a month. I was always meticulous about my hygiene and kept my clothes spotless, yet she constantly talked to me like I was some dirty, unrefined peasant. To please her, I would occasionally splurge on a high-end salon treatment during the few days a month she allowed me to be near her. I did all of it just to get a single second of her approval. Today, I just wanted to spend the savings I had earned from my actual job before the system ever showed up, but she completely misinterpreted my motives. Olivia suppressed her irritation and began to wrap the tie around my neck. I put my hand up to stop her. You have the wrong idea. Olivia froze. In the past, I would beg her to help me with my tie before we went out, and she would always refuse me with an annoyed sigh. Now that she was finally making an effort, I was the one backing away. Surprisingly, she didn't lose her temper. She stayed silent for a moment before stuffing the tie back into her bag and sighing. You just want a child of your own, don't you? She whispered. Once this baby is born, I promise I will have another one with you. If I had heard those words a year ago, I would have been ready to die for her out of sheer gratitude. Now, it was far too late for that. I brushed her off with a cold look. No thanks. Olivia likely assumed I was just being stubborn and throwing a fit. She suddenly leaned in toward me. Fine, stop being difficult. Let's just get this over with so I can shower and go to bed. I am exhausted. She spoke as if being with me was a chore she had to check off her list. Without thinking, I pushed her away with enough force to send her back. I had completely forgotten she was pregnant. Olivia gave a sharp cry of pain as she landed on the floor. She scrambled to her feet, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Lucas Miller, if you have something to say, say it. Who do you think you are, taking that tone with me? She let out a shrill scream. The baby is taking your last name. What more do you want? Stop being so ungrateful. I almost laughed at the absurdity of her words. Don't worry about the Miller legacy. I have no interest in letting someone like you pollute my family bloodline. In all the years we had been together, I had never spoken to her like that. Olivia was speechless. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Once she found her voice again, she exploded. This baby is innocent. How dare you talk about my child that way? There is something wrong with you. She stormed out of the room and slammed the door shut behind her. This time, I didn't chase after her to apologize. I didn't try to comfort her or beg for her forgiveness. A little later, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed the living room, I overheard her talking to her mother. Mrs. Anderson was comforting her with a soothing voice. Don't worry, darling. Once the baby is born and starts calling him daddy, his heart will melt. Olivia's voice sounded uneasy. I could almost picture the worried frown on her face. I just checked his bank account. He is usually incredibly stingy, but he spent almost everything he had today. Her mother snorted as if she had already figured it out. See, he probably heard about the trouble at the company and got scared you'd ask him for a loan. He spent all his cash just to keep it away from you. She paused before adding another mocking comment. Then he realized the situation wasn't that bad and that we'd fix it soon. So he came crawling back like nothing happened. Olivia knew me better than her mother did. She knew that I valued her far more than I valued money. If that weren't true, I wouldn't have used all three of my wishes on her. She defended me with a firm voice. No, it is not like that. When I was at my lowest and most desperate point, he gave me his very last cent, even though he was struggling to survive himself. He wouldn't start hiding money from me now. I think he is just really hurt. Her mother knew nothing about the system and just assumed Olivia was being too soft on me. She snorted in disapproval. You're just too kind. Once a man gets married, he should be handing over his entire paycheck anyway. Olivia hugged her mother, the hardness in her expression softening as she got lost in her memories. But when you were in that accident and I was drowning in work, he was the one who took care of everything. He stayed by your side day and night to take care of all your needs. Mrs. Anderson looked at her with disappointment. You silly girl. That was just his job as a stay-at-home husband. Any man in his position would have done the same, or even better. Listen to me. You are carrying Liam's baby, so you need to divorce Lucas immediately. With Liam helping you run the company, your life will be 100 times easier. I heard every single word from the hallway. To my surprise, Olivia didn't agree with her mother. She looked at her mother with a rare coldness in her eyes. Mom, I'm not divorcing him. Do not bring this up again. She wasn't holding on to me because of love. She was holding on because she couldn't afford to lose me. She knew better than anyone that if I left, her entire world could vanish in an instant. Her mother was about to keep arguing when she caught sight of me in the doorway. She let out a disgusted sneer. Look at that. Now he has started eavesdropping. You can really tell he comes from a low-class background with no manners. Olivia looked embarrassed at being caught. She pulled on her mother's arm. Mom, just stop. Mrs. Anderson calmed down slightly, but her gaze remained full of arrogance and contempt. Where's my warm milk for the evening? I used to wait on the two of them hand and foot as if they were royalty. I handled every little detail of their lives. Olivia was especially cold and arrogant. I had been willing to degrade myself and live like a servant just to get her to notice me. When her mother had that accident and fell into a coma, Olivia collapsed. She sobbed in my arms until she couldn't breathe. My heart broke for her in that moment. I used one of my wishes to ensure her mother would recover and live a long life. Mrs. Anderson woke up miraculously. Her recovery was incredibly fast, and even her chronic health issues vanished. I'd hoped she would be grateful that I saved her life. I thought their treatment of me would finally improve. Instead, the opposite happened. She and Olivia began to look at me with even more disdain than before. Why should I bring her milk now? I am not some masochist who enjoys being insulted. I kept my eyes on my phone and didn't look up. I am busy. Mrs. Anderson was about to lose it, but Olivia stopped her and walked over to me. We haven't had a nice dinner together in a long time. I made a reservation at that new French place. A candlelight dinner, just for us. I didn't bother responding. I just ignored her. Her phone buzzed just then. It was a message from Liam. Her eyes lit up instantly, but she tried to hide it. Something urgent came up at work. I have to run out for a bit. Don't forget about our dinner reservation. Without waiting for an answer, she started putting on her jewelry and touching up her lipstick. She practically floated out the door. It was obvious who she was really planning to spend a romantic evening with. As soon as she was gone, Mrs. Anderson slumped onto the sofa and crossed her arms as she turned on the television. I'm hungry. Go make me a snack. I want your beef Wellington. That dish was incredibly complicated and required a ton of ingredients. It took at least 4 hours to prepare and bake. I used to tolerate her mother's ridiculous demands because I was so deeply in love with Olivia at the time. I had forced myself to learn how to cook elaborate gourmet meals just because they asked me to. Now, she can go ahead and starve. I am far too useless to make something so fancy, I said over my shoulder as I walked into my room to play video games. Why don't you ask your favorite son-in-law to make it for you instead? Mrs. Anderson's face turned bright red. She was stunned for a moment before a smug look crossed her face. Fine, enjoy your attitude while it lasts. Once Olivia and Liam are married, you will be completely useless. The company is going to go global, and you will be left in the dust. I didn't even bother to argue. The old woman was still trying to set them up, oblivious to the fact that her time was running out. I didn't go to the restaurant that night, and Olivia never called me. My phone didn't buzz until 2 in the morning. Sorry about tonight. I wasn't feeling well and had to rest at the clinic for a while. Let's do lunch tomorrow instead. It was phrased like an invitation, but she clearly assumed I would just go along with whatever she decided. I was about to put my phone down when Liam sent me a photo. Olivia was fast asleep with flushed cheeks, leaning against Liam. Her underwear was draped over a chair by the bed. I recognized the room immediately. Olivia had posted countless selfies from that room on Facebook. The earliest one was from 3 years ago. That was even before she had been diagnosed with her brain tumor. It meant she had been cheating on me with Liam for a very long time. Liam had clearly sent the photo just to mock me and get a reaction. I ignored the photo, turned off my screen, and went back to sleep. Olivia called me over a dozen times around noon, but I didn't answer a single one. I silenced my phone and went back to sleep. I was just about to drift off again when the bedroom door was kicked open. Olivia stormed in and ripped the covers off me. Her voice was shaking with rage. "Lucas Miller, why did you stand me up?" She was actually trembling. "Do you have any idea how long I waited for you at that restaurant? 16 minutes and 9 seconds. Do you realize how valuable my time is?" I sat up and rubbed my eyes. I had stood her up exactly once, and she was acting like the world was ending. She had stood me up countless times over the years and never once felt bad about it. Liam followed her into the room, looking at me with nothing but pure contempt. "Olivia, your husband is really something else. I can't believe he actually let you sit there and wait. You should just divorce him already. I am much more reliable, and I can actually help you run the company. I wouldn't just lie around the house all day like a parasite." He said the last part with a smug grin, clearly expecting Olivia to back him up. But Olivia's expression shifted. She remembered how Liam had abandoned her the moment she was diagnosed with cancer. He hadn't even offered her a word of comfort before fleeing the country and disappearing. I was the one who had stayed by her bedside through all those long nights. I was the one who had literally saved her life. Her anger seemed to deflate. For the first time, she actually sounded like she was trying to apologize. "Fine, let's just call it even. I stood you up last night, so I won't hold this against you." She paused for a moment. "Since we are all here, why don't we all go out for lunch together?" Liam was surprised, but he quickly put on a generous front. "Sure, let's go. It is my treat." Just then, a notification echoed my mind. The departure portal had opened, and I was free to return to my original world at any time. I laughed. It was the first time I'd felt genuinely happy in a long time. I slowly stood up from the bed. "No thanks. You three enjoy your lunch. I'm going home now." Liam blinked in confusion and then laughed. "What are you talking about? This is your home." He didn't understand what I meant, but Olivia did. She knew exactly what I meant by going home. She stared at me, looking absolutely terrified. "Stop it, Lucas. You worked so hard to be with me. You used all your rewards on me and on our life together. If you stay, you will have more money than you could ever spend." I held up a hand to silence her. "Let me give you some advice," I said calmly. "Stop wasting your breath and start thinking about how you are going to handle the coming disaster. The moment I leave, everything the system gave you will be revoked. From then on, you will be entirely on your own." Olivia crossed her arms and sneered. "Who do you think you're scaring? Do you really think I'm still that naive girl from years ago? When she had nothing, she would at least listen to me. Now that she was at the top, she believed she was a queen who didn't need anyone." Liam didn't understand the whole conversation, but he joined in on the mocking anyway. "I thought poor kids were supposed to grow up fast. Why are you acting so childish, Lucas? Olivia, do you really want to spend the rest of your life with someone this immature?" Before he could finish his sentence, his phone rang. He answered it, and his face instantly went pale. "Olivia," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Every single one of our partners has pulled their funding. All of our contracts have been terminated. The IRS is launching a full audit. They're claiming there has been massive tax evasion." In just a few sentences, Anderson Solutions had been given a death sentence. The company was finished, and Olivia was now personally liable for billions of dollars in debt. Before she could even process the news, her own phone began to ring. It was the hospital. "Is this Olivia Anderson? Your mother has just lapsed into a coma. She is in a vegetative state. We need you to come in immediately to sign emergency consent forms." Olivia stood there as if she had been struck by lightning. She finally realized that I wasn't bluffing. I was actually leaving. She lunged forward and grabbed my arm, her voice filled with a desperate panic. "Lucas, honey, please don't do this. We can sit down and talk about this, okay?" I shoved her hand away and gave her a cold smile. "Don't panic yet. The next thing that is being taken back is your life." Before she could say another word, I stepped into the shimmering portal. Olivia stared at me, her expression turning dark and intense. "Are you really leaving?" I didn't answer and just kept walking. She let out a long, low sigh. "I didn't want it to come to this, Lucas, but you have forced my hand." She pulled a small, neatly folded piece of parchment from her bag that was covered in strange symbols. With a flick of her wrist, she set the paper on fire. As the flames flared up, the portal behind me began to shake violently. It started to shrink and distort as if someone had pulled the plug until it vanished completely. Olivia stood across from me with a look of cold triumph and possessiveness in her eyes. "Ever since I saw what your system could really do, I have lived in fear of the day you would leave me behind. I started looking for experts who could help me. Eventually, I found someone who gave me that binding charm. Now that it has been burned, you can never leave me." I looked at the empty space where the portal had been and began to laugh. It was a cold, jagged sound that bordered on insanity. It was so incredibly ironic. I had sacrificed everything for her and built the life she now enjoyed. And her way of thanking me was to start plotting how to keep me chained to her side from the very beginning. I was the only fool in this situation. I had spent years working for her while holding onto the delusional hope that she might actually love me. I called out to the system in my mind. A series of cold, clinical notifications appeared before my eyes. Error. The host has left too many traces in this world and significantly altered the fates of multiple individuals. The host's own destiny matrix is now entangled, which has compromised the integrity of the departure portal. Attempting to reconnect. I see how it is. By using all my rewards on her, I had essentially dug my own grave. Respected host, the vulnerability repair protocol has been initiated. We are currently correcting the timeline. Estimated time for portal reconstruction is 15 days. Once all granted wishes have been fully revoked, the departure portal will reopen. Please confirm if you wish to proceed with the departure. I didn't hesitate to hit confirm. Olivia had no idea what was happening. She truly believed she had trapped me forever. "You are going to stay right here," she said with absolute certainty. "I will have people watching you 24 hours a day." She turned to Liam. "Let's go. We need to go to the hospital and pick up my mother." Liam was still in a state of shock over the company's sudden collapse. He looked completely dazed. "Olivia, don't worry too much. I'm sure your mother is just going through a rough patch. She will pull through." Olivia let out a cold laugh. She didn't sound sad at all. "You don't understand, Liam. As long as Lucas is here, my mother and the company will be fine. I bet she is already awake." As if on cue, her phone rang. The caller ID showed it was the hospital. Olivia held up her phone with a smug look. "See? The hospital is calling with good news." She answered the phone before they could even speak. "Don't worry, I am on my way. I will be there to bring her home in just a bit." After the initial scare, she had already come up with a plausible story to tell the doctors to explain her mother's miraculous recovery. Just as she thought she was back in control, the doctor's frantic and angry voice came through the line. As Olivia listened, her face began to contort with fear and disbelief. "You didn't leave. You are right here. So why is this happening to my mother? Tell me why." She was frozen in place, completely losing her composure. I said nothing. Liam eventually snapped out of it and dragged her toward the hospital. Olivia insisted that I come along. The red light above the operating room door was glowing. Olivia was in a daze, signing whatever forms or consent papers the doctors put in front of her. As soon as she signed, the surgical team rushed back inside. The longer it took, the more she spiraled into a panic. Finally, her knees gave out and she collapsed on the floor in front of me, her voice hoarse from crying. "Lucas, I swear I know I was wrong. Please just save my mother. My father died so young, and she's the only family I have left. You can hate me all you want. I will do anything you ask. Just please save her. I'm the one who messed up, so punish me instead. Her tears used to work on me every single time, but I had learned that my pity only ever led to my own suffering. I remembered the system's warnings about interfering with the fates of others. It told me it would eventually come back to haunt me. Back then, I had ignored every warning just so I could help her. Now, I just watch her break down with an expressionless face. I'm just a loser, Olivia. How could I possibly have that kind of power? She began to sob even harder, nearly hysterical. People in the waiting room were starting to stare. Liam looked completely lost. He tried to comfort her by saying, "Olivia, please calm down. Think about the baby." Olivia stayed on her knees, motionless. She looked like she was about to start hitting herself if I didn't give in. The red light on the operating room door finally turned off. The surgeon stepped out with a grim expression and let out a long sigh. "We did everything we could. I'm so sorry for your loss." Olivia's mother was truly gone this time. It was a far more permanent end than the coma, but I suppose that was the price for the extra time she had been given. Olivia lunged at me, screaming things I couldn't even understand. She was completely hysterical. Eventually, she went limp and collapsed into Liam's arms, unconscious. She was taken to a room and laid out on a hospital bed. Liam, her supposed true love, seemed more concerned about the baby than he was about her. He barely even looked at her. He spent all his time arguing with the staff about whether they needed to hire a high-priced private nurse. When Olivia finally opened her eyes, he rushed to her side. He put on a look of deep concern. "Olivia, you fainted and scared me half to death. I have been sitting here for 3 hours waiting for you to wake up." He started rambling on about all the things he had allegedly done for her while she was out. Olivia looked deeply moved as she reached for his hand, her voice trembling. "If only you hadn't left me back then. I never would have married Lucas." Liam was her first love, the one she could never get over. They had been childhood sweethearts who grew up together. Everyone had always assumed they would end up together. They were practically engaged from a young age, and everyone expected them to get married. But then Olivia's family business collapsed. Her father was driven to the edge by debt and ultimately took his own life. The Anderson family lost everything. All of their former business associates turned their backs on them immediately. Even Liam's family broke off the engagement immediately. Liam himself was whisked away to another country by his parents without a single word. After all those crushing blows, Olivia was at her lowest point. I was the only one who stayed by her side during that time. I was the one who helped her get back on her feet and helped her rebuild Anderson Solutions from the ground up. Once the company was successful again, all the people who had abandoned her came crawling back, claiming they always knew she would succeed. Liam also made his miraculous return at that time, claiming that his family had forced him to leave against his will. By then, I was already with Olivia. From their whispered conversations, I pieced together the truth. Liam had told her that he didn't mind being her secret lover. For years, they had been carrying on an affair behind my back. When Olivia was diagnosed with cancer, the man who had promised to love her forever vanished once again. Liam had only returned a year ago this time. His excuse was that he had been mugged and knocked unconscious before being sent out of the country against his will. Now, he sat by her bed holding her hand with a look of fake remorse. "It is all my fault. I wasn't strong enough to stand up to my parents back then. But I promise you, Olivia, I will never leave you again." Olivia lay there with tears streaming down her face as she looked at him, but the old spark in her eyes was gone. "I understand, Liam. If you had really wanted to stay, no one could have forced you to leave." Her voice was flat as she continued. "Besides, you could have contacted me even if you were abroad. But you never did. Not once." She pulled her hand away from him and looked at his shocked face. "I'm going to have your baby, Liam, but I am never going to marry you." Liam forced a smile, though his face remained tense. "Everyone makes mistakes, Olivia. Can't you just give me one more chance?" Olivia's expression was cold. "We will see how you behave from now on." I hadn't planned on going into the room, but the doctor insisted on speaking to me since I was her legal husband. The moment I walked in, Olivia glared at me with pure hatred. "My mother is dead. Are you happy now? You are cold-blooded, Lucas. I am done with you. I want a divorce." I just shrugged and held up my hands. "Whatever you want." The doctor hesitated for a moment before I nodded for him to continue. He turned toward Olivia with a solemn look. Ms. Anderson, I am afraid I have some very bad news. Your brain tumor has returned, and it is at an advanced stage. The cancer is spreading very rapidly. You likely have about 2 weeks left. The truth was that she was beyond saving. The cancer was aggressive and had already spread throughout her body. The room went completely silent as everyone processed the news. Liam stood up abruptly. Doctor, what about the baby? What happens to the baby? The doctor adjusted his glasses and spoke without a hint of emotion. The mother will not survive, and there is no chance for the baby either. I had already expected this. To fix the mess I had made, the system was reclaiming everything it had given her. I could have left the moment the mission was over, but that was exactly when Olivia had fallen ill. I couldn't stand the thought of her dying so young back then because I really did love her. So I used my final, most powerful wish to save her. Now her condition was even worse than before. There was no hope left. Olivia sat in silence for a few moments as her anger vanished. She looked up at me with tears welling in her eyes. You are really leaving, aren't you? You're taking everything back. Even my life. I didn't say anything. The answer was obvious. Liam couldn't handle the sudden turn of events. He looked at me with a face full of fury. Lucas, stop playing games. You obviously paid this doctor to scare us. If you're going to fake a medical report, at least try to make it look professional. He seemed to think of something else, and his expression became even more mocking. I took her for a full physical recently, and she was perfectly healthy. Even if it was cancer, it wouldn't just jump to the final stage overnight. Advanced cancer patients usually have months to live. No doctor just gives you 2 weeks to live out of nowhere. And the whole bankruptcy thing is ridiculous too. A construction accident wouldn't just bankrupt a company overnight. A company that size doesn't just disappear. Olivia, he is setting all of this up. He paid these people off. Don't believe anything they say. Liam's logic was sound in a normal world, but he didn't realize that reality could be twisted by something like the system. I stayed silent, but the doctor was clearly insulted by Liam's accusations. Mr. Walker, if you don't believe me, you are welcome to take her to another hospital for a second opinion. I can guarantee you the results will be identical. Liam refused to believe it. He dragged Olivia to several other major hospitals to get her checked. At the same time, all of Olivia's assets were frozen. Luckily, she had insisted on a prenuptial agreement to protect her money from me, so I had never been involved in her finances. Ironically, the small apartment I had bought with my own savings was now the only safe haven left. With nowhere else to turn, Olivia was forced to move her things into my apartment. When I got home, Liam and Olivia were in the middle of a massive argument. I thought you had actually become someone successful, Liam screamed at her. But you are as useless as ever. The company is gone, and so is the baby. Olivia was stunned by how quickly Liam had turned on her. She looked at him with utter disappointment. You were the one who abandoned me first, and you only came crawling back when you saw I had money. Now that I have nothing left, you are turning on me again. You are pathetic, Liam. Get out. Get out of here right now, and never let me see your face again. Olivia rubbed her temples, looking completely worn out. Liam, however, didn't seem to have a shred of shame. He sat down on my sofa as if he owned the place. I will leave, but only after you give back everything I ever bought for you. I want to be reimbursed for every meal, every hospital visit, and even the cost of helping you move. We are settling the tab right now. He pulled out a stack of receipts and started slamming them onto the table. He had every single expense accounted for. When he slapped down the final bill, Olivia looked like she was about to collapse. In that moment, whatever love they had for each other vanished. Olivia looked completely broken. To think I spent years loving a man like you. You make me sick. Liam didn't care about her insults. He even looked a little smug. You're the real pro here. You used Lucas until there was nothing left, and then try to toss him aside. I am just following your lead. Olivia's chest was heaving as she shook with rage. For years, Liam had used her connections to enrich himself. He had seen her as nothing more than a ladder to climb. Now, instead of being grateful, he was abandoning her the moment things got difficult. It was only now, experiencing his betrayal, that she finally understood what I had gone through all those years. "I'm nothing like a parasite like you," Olivia spat. "You are pathetic. Consider that money a payment for your services as a lapdog." Her words cut deep, even for someone as shameless as Liam. He lashed out and slapped her across the face. As he pulled his hand back, he realized I was standing in the open doorway, watching the whole thing with a cold gaze. Liam shot me a hateful look before turning back to Olivia. "You had better pay me back every cent, or I will make your life a living hell." With that, he brushed past me and walked out without looking back. As soon as the door closed, Olivia collapsed into a corner and began to sob uncontrollably. "Lucas," she sobbed between gasps. "I see it now. It was all talk. He never actually did anything. You were the only one who actually cared about me. Can we please start over?" She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "I never realized how much you did for me. I swear I will treat you better from now on." I sat on the edge of the sofa and quietly lit a cigarette. "I think the two of you are perfect for each other. You are both incredibly selfish and only care about yourselves. Anyone could see how much I did for you. For you to say you never realized it was a lie. You were just afraid of dying, Olivia. Don't try to manipulate me with these pathetic excuses." Olivia froze for a moment before she began to cry again. "I'm so sorry, Lucas. I am so sorry." But her tears meant nothing to me anymore. I got up and went to my room to sleep. A short while later, she was knocking on my door. "It is about my mother's permission. I don't have any money and no one to help me." "I don't have any money either," I said. My gaze fell on the dresser where several luxury watches were sitting. They were all gifts she had given me over the years. "Take those watches I have and sell them." Olivia gripped her phone, a look of deep embarrassment crossing her face. Just as I was about to close the door, she spoke in a low voice. "I can't sell them. They're all fakes. They aren't worth anything." I paused, genuinely surprised. They came with receipts. How could they be fakes? Olivia looked down at the floor. "I didn't buy real ones, but I gave those to Liam. I only ever bought knockoffs." Everything finally made sense. I had thought those gifts were a sign of her guilt, but she just didn't want to spend any real money on me. "Then you should go get the real ones back from me," I said coldly before slamming the door. Desperate, Olivia called Liam to try and get the real watches back. Liam was completely dismissive. "Those watches have lost all their value. You should focus on paying me back instead of coming up with these schemes." Olivia hung up and slumped against my door, sobbing. I woke up the next morning to find my apartment was surprisingly clean. Olivia was wearing loungewear and holding a plate of breakfast. "Cool me. I made this just for you." I walked to the fridge, grabbed 2 slices of bread, and started eating the plate. I didn't say a word. "You only learned how to cook like that from me, didn't you?" She had known how to cook all along. But in all the years we were together, she never made a single meal for me. Olivia's face fell at the mention of it. "Don't talk about it. I only love you." Hearing her say, "She only loved me," made my skin crawl. If she really loved me, she wouldn't have gotten pregnant by Liam the second she thought she had me trapped. The day of my departure was drawing near. The 15-day countdown was finally over. The air in front of me began to shimmer as a portal home slowly materialized. I started walking toward the light. Olivia's eyes snapped open, filled with pure terror. "Please don't leave me. I don't want to die." I didn't slow down as I stepped into the portal. The moment I was gone, her body collapsed to the floor, lifeless. The system had finally reset everything to how it was supposed to be. That Ethan's journey serves as a poignant reminder that the miracles we perform for others are hollow if we remain the only ones left in the wreckage of our own sacrifice. We often mistake silent endurance for strength, forgetting that a heart that is constantly stepped on eventually loses the rhythm of its own. It is a profound realization to understand that you are not a supporting character in someone else's empire, nor are you a safety net to those who only look at you. True love should be a sanctuary of mutual respect, not a checklist of servitude. If your kindness is treated as a weakness and your devotion as a gift, remember that the most sacred act of any soul is the moment you decide to reclaim your power and finally, unapologetically, rescue yourself.